Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Center Court. Today's event is a big one. We're going to talk about an MBA from the Asia School of Business and where can the degree take you. I'm especially delighted to present this session because I've been a fan of the Asia School of Business since its very beginning. It was founded by MIT Sloan in Kuala Lumpur. And the central bank of the country was very much involved in the formation of this school. And what I really have always loved was the approach taken to the MBA degree. Literally, the founders took out a white piece of paper and said, if we were going to reinvent the MBA for a modern time, what would it look like? And the design of the curriculum started there. And what the school came up with is truly unique. It's completely differentiated. And in many ways, I think the Asia School of Business is one of the business schools for the future. With me today, I have D.W. Lee, the Director of Employer Relations, and I have an alum from the class of 2019, Ricardo Latapi. So welcome, guys. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, John.
So DW, let's begin with a general introduction of your school, the mission, the value,
Sure.
reputation, its actual location, and what it stands for.
Sure, absolutely. So we at the Asia School of Business, we were founded in 2015 by the Central Bank of Malaysia, Bank Negara, in collaboration with MIT Sloan School of Management. Our first class, inaugural class, graduated in 2018. And we have our latest 2022 class that just graduated a couple of days ago, actually. And we set this school up from the beginning with MIT and designed infusing the MIT core MBA curriculum at the center of things. But what we also did was, as you mentioned earlier, we did something very different and unique, where we had brought in a experiential learning at the center of learning for this program, and what we call action learning. And action learning takes about a third of the overall program curriculum, where in other many schools, we have similar programs, but they're usually offered as a capstone course. Whereas action learning is taken every semester, every term here at ASB, and takes up 30% of all their studies. And they go out, they're not in the classroom, they go out and they're working in different countries, different industries, different businesses, different functions, solving live business problems in different groups of teams, every time different, I think, composition. And we try to instill an understanding of business, the culture, the different people that they have to work with in the world. And this is real life business problems they're expected to solve. And by the time they're finished, they can have exposure up to 5 different countries, 5 different industries, 5 different functions. And that's what we truly call market ready. Of course, they're going to be in the classrooms doing their cases and whatnot, but I think that's what differentiates ASB from other business schools, not just in the region, but around the world. We have a very unique composition. 70% of our students are international and coming from across 20 to 25 countries, depending on the cohort. So we are very proud of that diversity. And another portion that we're proud about is that we're also very close to gender parity, where about 40 to 45% of our students are female. So we have very strong, I think, passion to pursue that diversity in the classroom and in the work that we do. That's sort of ASB in a nutshell.
Okay.
And back to you, John.
Yeah, well, I think that a fundamental underpinning of the school strategy from the start is that learning by doing is an important element of a professional education. And the fact that students spend so much time in experiential action with real companies, real clients all over the world, it gives them, a unique perspective on different challenges, no matter where they are, and dealing with different cultures. A lot of schools may say they're global or international, but in fact, you may never leave the campus that you set foot on. And if you have a project, you're right, it's a capstone to a course. In many cases, it's not even mandatory. This is such a crucial part of the curriculum that it truly sets the school apart from all other business schools in the world. I wonder, in your short, brief history as a business school, what kind of people you've attracted. I mean, you mentioned that it's heavily international, but in terms of work experience, in terms of what regions of the world they're coming from, and in terms
Mm.
of what they do when they graduate, give us a sense of that.
Sure thing. So yes, definitely, we pride ourselves in the diversity of, it's not just one part of Asia Pacific, but throughout the globe. We have students coming from the Americas, as here we have Ricardo coming from the Latin American region, but North America, South America, I would say we have approximately on average about 20% of our students coming from that part of the world. EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, we have I believe another 15% there. And then, of course, the rest are coming from Central Asia and East Asia. So it is very widespread. And of course, we have our very talented Malaysians as well, who compose 30% of our cohorts. In terms of their backgrounds, they usually have about so our school requires minimum 2 years work experience, but on average, we see approximately 5 to 7 years work experience. Some come with a very extraordinary background, even though they have only 2 years work experience. They may have done a startup while they were in undergrad or in school. So they bring a lot of that work experience and that entrepreneurial experiences on top of the 2 years post graduation requirement. We have those coming with 10 years experience sometimes, but they also add tremendous value because they bring the seasoned, I think, professional exposure that they've had into the classroom and share that with their peers. So on average, 5 to 7 years work experience. Industry-wise, it's from all walks of life, I would say.
Mhm.
We've got lawyers, we've got those coming with engineering backgrounds, those coming marketing, tech, uh, but a lot of our students tend to come with a sense of, I think, interest in pivoting into different industries, different roles, different functions, and different geographies. So they come from all walks of life and they go to very different areas of different industries that they don't come from. And I think going back to the action learning piece, one of the reasons why they choose ASB is because they want the exposure to different industries they have not been in, and they want to validate whether this is what they want to really do after graduation. So it gives them a sense of feel and not just theoretically, but in actuality, having worked with the corporations that have hosted their action learning projects, really understand that this is how it works in this part of industry or function. And that gives them a really good sense of what they want to do. Geography wise, yes, they come from different regions, but a lot of our students, I would say about 50% of our international students who are non-Malaysian end up staying in Asia, and they come with an aspiration to better know the market. And I think we provide that value proposition as well, that you get to be in Ho Chi Minh one term, and then in one term you're in Bangkok, another term you're in, sometimes even we go beyond ASEAN, Southeast Asia, and you're in Korea or you're in Saudi Arabia. So I think it gives them a really wide understanding of the region. And we usually have, so I'm head of employer relations at ASB, and when I talk to recruiters, one of their biggest pain points is when we bring in expats or international hires, it takes about 2 years for them to settle into Asia. For our students, we pretty much see a similar observation across the board as they're already in Asia, they already have exposure to the businesses and the different cultures and the people, and they adjust very quickly. So they're pretty much hitting the road running, and that's what I think draws a lot of attention to the recruiters to our students.
And the school also brings its students to MIT Sloan in Boston.
Yes. Absolutely. So not only do we bring the best to Asia, but we also bring the best of US MBA curriculum, and that being MIT Sloan. So our students, as a part of their immersion, they are expected to take on a 1.5 month immersion program at MIT at the Sloan School of Management and taking classes. Of course, something that I forgot to mention was when they're not doing action learning, they're in class, of course, taking modules. It's a very intense period where they have to take modules, let's say for a month between action learning projects. And we have MIT faculty flying into Kuala Lumpur in the classroom to be with our students and teach the same curriculum that is being taught at MIT. Of course, we have in-house faculty coming from renowned, PhD programs, and they're also MIT faculty fellows internationally. So we have the same level of rigor that we expect of our ASB students as MIT students. And of course, we send them to MIT, and they are already used to the curriculum. They're already used to the ways that it's being done over there. So again, we just have them hit the road running over there as well.
So I need to bring in Ricardo into this conversation. And as I do so, what I'd like Ricardo to do is give us a little bit of his background. What led you to pursue an MBA? Talk us through your thought process and how you ended up choosing the Asia School of Business.
I think, and thank you very much for the question. And a lot of the things that the DW was saying are like, checking all those boxes when I was making that decision, right? So I think number one, and the biggest one, was I really wanted to pursue an international career. And when I was working in Latin America at that time, I was working for Facebook, which is now Meta, and I had pretty good exposure to how the business and companies, big companies like tech companies, were growing internationally. So I think I had that curiosity of understanding how other parts in the world work. And coming from an emerging region, I think I was very interested in understanding also what was happening the other part of the world. So I had the chance of traveling to Asia for pleasure purposes, and I fell in love with the region. So I think that's one of those components. But I think most importantly, when I got to know about the ASB program, what made me, what it made the program stand out to me was one, how rigorous they were with this new design of the curriculum. So I think you mentioned that before, which is it is very innovative. It was nothing similar on other programs that I was looking at. Having MIT supporting the academic part, I think it was like a very important one as well. But more than that, the ability of exposing yourself to different countries in different projects, I think that really attracted me. And I think I wanted to see how business was done in Asia as well. So I knew that I will get a very good academic experience, but also a very good personal one. So definitely paid off. And here I am now doing an international role. So I think it was a great decision.
And let me point out that, Ricardo, you were something of a pathfinder, because after all, you were only in the second graduating class.
Yes.
So while you weren't in the guinea pig first class, you were in the second class, meaning you didn't even have the benefit of this new, beautiful, magnificent campus that has been put up. And when you were in the program, there was even a greater reliance on MIT faculty who were flying over. That's still the case, as DW pointed out, but now the school has spent a number of years building a very good faculty that's resident on the campus. But I wonder, give us a sense of your learning experience. I mean, what surprised you about it? What impressed you about it? How did it meet your expectations for what you thought you would get?
Yeah, no, and I think you're right. Like, the program has been evolving so quickly, and I think that really speaks about other aspect that I was not saying, but now that I remember it, which is it really operates as a startup as well. Which in today's world, I think that mindset of understanding how those frameworks works into practice is very important. And I was living that as a student as well. And I think being part of the second class really helped me not to have a passive but an active participation on how my academic experience was, which is something that I really value. I think that structure, it's pretty much the same in today's MBA, which is composed by 5 terms, both with the local faculty from ASB and also from visiting faculty from MIT. Of course, at that time I had, I think, a balance of more MIT faculty visiting. So my structure was, I think, a bit more intense in the way that my days were going, because professors will fly in for 1 or 2 weeks and they will want you to, read all the content and be prepared for participating in class. So it really felt very intense, and in combination with your actual learning projects, which is I think one of the biggest value propositions from ASB. So yes, I had the chance of traveling to 5 different countries. I think I was one of those ones that DW was mentioning of, checking off different industries, exposing myself to different countries. So I had projects in Bangkok, in Bali, in Indonesia. I went to Hong Kong. I did other in Ho Chi Minh, and of course I was in Malaysia for other projects around. So I think that really is something that I experienced, and I got that. Like living and breathing the Asia experience, and of course, yes, having the spring immersion with them in the US for those 6 weeks. It was not only by being with MIT Sloan, but also like being able to visit other parts of the US, getting exposed to different companies, industries, which I think it's very valuable. And lastly, I think I think this is very particular to ASB as well, which is your 3rd action learning project, which is also a summer associate program. I think one of the unique values is that you can stay in the region as well. So you don't need to go into these traditional summer associate programs. Of course, if you want, you can do, and I have some classmates doing that. And I considered that when I joined. So talking about what surprised me, or what is something that that changed when I was there, is I was so impressed and so in love with the region that I didn't want to leave for my action learning project, right, for the summer. So I took a project in Hong Kong, which was a great experience. And then that made me realize that I wanted to extend my time in the region after the MBA. And I took a global role in China after that, of course, with, what happened with COVID and in the past 2 years, I relocated back to Latin America. I am now in the US. So I think that's only reflecting, that ability that the W was saying about being able to adapt, not to Asia, but I think to different environments. And I am very grateful for that experience, because now I see myself and I look back and I'm like, wow, yeah, like a lot of people may struggle adapting, but not anymore. Like I can live with a suitcase, I can just land in and do the job.
And you currently do what?
So I'm currently working in the international expansion team of advertising at Amazon. And I'm based here in the US, in New York City right now.
Oh, in New York City. Okay.
Yeah, so we're in the same time zone.
Great. That's great. So, one other thing I want to let everyone know is that when the central bank decided to approach MIT Sloan to help it create a school, the main goal was to create a world-class business school for Malaysia. So this is not a small effort or something to just put up a new business school. This was an effort to become more present, more prominent on the world stage of business and economics. And what that all means is that the central bank has been very committed to this school and project in ways that are far beyond just the investment that has been considerable, that has been made by the central bank in building the school. And I think one of the really interesting aspects of the school and the program is the support that industry in Malaysia has given to the school. It's been a full and total embrace and a very welcoming kind of thing for Malaysia, because everyone in Malaysia who's involved in business and in industry understands the importance of having a world-class business school there. And in the early days, Ricardo, in your class, I wonder how many were in your intake, how many classmates did you have, and how did they get divided up for these projects?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. If I recall correctly, and DW can verify that, I were 36 of us during that second cohort, and we were paired up by I think like the school did a great job of making sure that they had a good diversity in each of the projects that we were doing with the different host companies. So my first action learning project was with a travel like a travel company, like a well-known hotel chain in Kuala Lumpur. They were opening up a new new property in KL. Well, they were rebuilding it, and now it became one of the most iconic buildings in the city. And I think yeah, like the way that the teams were structured, of course, consider a lot of our preferences, and I wanted to test myself under the travel industry, and I think that was one of the ones that made me take that project. And similarly, other of my classmates had those desires as well in terms of which industries they wanted to test. But I think we were like very new to the school. We still were trying to understand, what else we wanted to learn. And I think the school did a great job of adding a second layer, which was making sure that we had different point of views represented from all the different backgrounds that we were coming from. So I think that really helped to bring together like great outcomes for our host companies and also for our learning. So that's how it was done. I think it was at that time 4 to 5 students of each of the projects. So we work with big companies, this hotel chain, or like the biggest airline in Malaysia as well. So and just to name a few.
That's great. Now, DW, I'm wondering, it's clear that your curriculum is innovative and creative and different. But what about your careers curriculum? I'm wondering if it's equally innovative in terms of how you prepare students for new global careers.
Sure. I'm with the Career Development Office, and we've evolved tremendously over the years. But I think from the get-go, we realized that the career office or the career services that are provided to our students is not going to be the same as MIT, not going to be the same as the US business schools, because we're in a very different region where I think it requires a lot of bespoke, I think, approach to networking.
Yeah.
And of course, opening doors is part of my job, but in doing so, we need to prepare our students to be refined, polished, and sophisticated enough to make sure they are in that conversation and be able to make their sell or value proposition to the potential hiring manager or recruiters. So we have our what we call, so our office, Career Development Office, we go by CDO. CDO has its core curriculum where we start with the exploration of where you want to be, what you want to do, and what you're good at, and how does that align. So a lot of reflection in the first couple of weeks as soon as they begin their program. And through those reflections,
the acronym CDO, what does it stand for?
Career Development Office. Career Development Office. Yes,
Okay.
sorry about. So CDO has begins with a lot of reflection, self-assessment, and after that, we have a series of continued offerings for advisory and coaching. And because we can afford because of the small size of the class that we have, we can afford a more bespoke, very custom-made approach to try to tailor to the needs and cater to their needs accordingly. And of course, we try to identify the right advisors for them to work with throughout their career journey at ASB to ensure, and if they switch, then we'll switch accordingly, or we try to pivot with them. And that process sometimes can be very, I think, demanding, but I think we have the capacity to do that, and we enjoy doing it. And we also offer what we call career treks, so that we not only just tell them, but we show them what the landscape is like. So we have a series of curated trips to hub cities such as Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, and now we're looking into Bangkok these days. But there we take our students, and that's actually it's a curation, but students pay their own way to those cities, and we work with them to introduce new businesses that they may not be familiar with, or existing marquee names such as consulting firms or investment banking or financial services. So these are things that we do throughout their curriculum. And of course, when we get lemons, we make lemonade. During COVID, we had a series of business insight events where we brought in business leaders to give insights about the industry, about the work. And I think that really added tremendous value to our students when they couldn't be on the ground meeting with the folks. So we are able to, I think, maneuver very quickly with a lot of agility to accommodate the changing needs and the landscapes that we observe. So that's pretty much it for CDO in a nutshell. There's much more to tell, of course, but I think we're almost out of time here. So
yeah, and I know one-on-one coaching is essential when you're talking about bespoke searches for opportunities and the need to network to get them, because obviously as a new school, that's going to be a necessity. And in fact, at all schools, increasingly, students are wanting special things, meaning in addition to maybe going into mainstream careers in finance and tech and consulting, more and more students want early stage companies, more of them want startups, more of them want companies that don't hire MBAs by the bushel, where they can have a bigger role and assume more responsibility quickly. I wonder, DW, what do you think your employers most appreciate about the students from your school?
I think so. It's a trend right now that we're observing, or I think across the board, is while there are lots of MBAs with the skills, the technical skills and the knowledge necessary, they find it difficult to identify those students who have the smart skills. We call them smart skills, but in general, in layman's words, they're usually referred to as soft skills. So they're the skills that the human capital skills per se, to be able to communicate, to be able to be humble, to be able to be connectors. And I think those are things that on top of what we originally say as hard skills, we call them sharp skills. So we call them sharp skills because they're the technical knowledge, but it may be relevant today, may not be relevant tomorrow. So we need to continuously sharpen those skills as well. So for ASB, we pride on trying to get our students to a level where they have the sophisticated sharp and smart skills. And I think a lot of students find that they have an easier time trying to integrate into the organization once they're in because of those smart skills. And
yeah, let me point out that term, that phrase, was coined by one of your professors, Loredana Bedouin, who I've had the pleasure of meeting very early on because she's been involved in the school from almost day one with your MIT founder, effectively. And Ricardo, I want to just go back and ask you, if you had to go and look at your experience at the school, now that you've been out in the workplace for a number of years, what would be the three things you most remember that really resonated with you, that made a difference in your life so far?
Well, I think those resonate very much on what we have been saying.
Yes.
And I think the first one is that global understanding, like really understanding how consumers across the globe like behave like differently, and what do they have in common as well, which is something that you can learn in the classroom, and that you can read, and you can get a lot of understanding from the theory. But I think when you put that into practice, I think that really adds a different layer and a different lens on how to see on that global world. And I think that's the number one, which is in line with the second one, which I will say as a person now, I try to listen more. I try to be more empathetic. I try to break my own biases. We live in a very diverse world, and I think Now I am a more inclusive person as well, and I think that's coming from those experiences. And the third one is adjusting to that, right? We are living in a world that's constantly changing, and I think adapting to that, I think it's very important. And that's on DW's and Loredana's words, is not a soft or hard skill that you have, right? Like that's something smart, and there's some sharp parts of that, but I think that ability of adapting and adjusting, I think that's something that I really see that I have developed in myself, and I really like the person I have became just from that experience.
That's great. DW, if you were to offer some advice for people out there who are considering a path that Ricardo chose, what advice would it be?
Well, I could only say one thing. If you're a risk taker, please consider ASB. We offer something very unique, something very extraordinary. And all of our students who come out, including Ricardo here, has let's just say it has been transformational, and we promise you nothing less. So if you're considering some pivoting into different industries, if you're wanting to go into different functions and you really want to validate that through experience, then ASB is the school for you.
I have to totally agree with you, DW. I mean, this is, like I said before, a truly unique MBA, MBA designed for the modern day. And the beauty of it is, you know, while many schools have revamped curriculum to keep it up to date, you know, when you're vested with legacy issues and and faculty in departments who are guarding their turf, it's very difficult to make the kind of changes that you can do as a total startup, and able to just literally take out a white sheet of paper and say, what should a great MBA be today? Asia School of Business figured it out and is delivering it. So I want to thank both Ricardo and DW for a great session. Really appreciated it. And I hope that all of you out there have opened your eyes to some new and really interesting opportunities. And if you are a risk taker, you know, go for it. Go for it. Absolutely. Check it out. Talk to some graduates of the program. See what they experienced. See if this is for you. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. You've been watching our Center Court session on the Asia School of Business.